Hello and welcome to the Preparing for Divorce workshop. I am Latoya Nelson, a licensed clinical mental health counselor and owner of Lotus Wellness Center in Raleigh, North Carolina, where we specialize in helping with divorce recovery, education, and in some cases, prevention. So I just want to come and give you this workshop on things that you should be considering when preparing for divorce, whether you are the person asking for the divorce or if this is something that your partner has spoken to you about or has indeed initiated. Oftentimes there's grief on each part because it's a big life change. Nothing is guaranteed, so you can definitely go for a divorce, start the whole process, and still reconcile. So, we'll just be talking about a few things in this workshop to consider, things to plan for, and things to go over. One of the biggest factors is just a matter of how we got here. Have things been going on in the relationship that haven't been working? Are there irreconcilable differences? Has there been infidelity?
A big piece that we can often get hung up on is how did we get to this point? Oftentimes, with things such as divorce, there's a clear cut reason as to why the relationship is not working. That is often the case with infidelity as well. But in the instance where we are unhappy and we've been unhappy for a while, or finances have been an issue, that can be a bit of a shadier area where we may not feel as comfortable saying that I'm just unhappy, and I think sometimes the best thing to do is end the relationship. Hopefully, this workshop will give you some other things to consider. So, in this workshop, we're going to go over the grief associated with divorce. We're going to go over financial things to consider, no matter which end of the divorce you're on, as well as some legal options that you may or may not have heard of, as well as coping. What supports do we have, and how do we handle that? So, I hope you have a pen and paper ready to take some notes, and let's get started. So, as it relates to the grief when dealing with divorce, this is something that can happen on both ends. Whether you are the person initiating divorce or whether you're the person on the receiving end of the news that your partner wants a divorce, there's going to be grief because there is a change in the relationship. No matter how long you've been in the marriage, whether it's been 2 years or 20 years, you've built an idea that we're going to have a life with this person. And we often go into a relationship not thinking about it not working, but really focused on, I'm going to make it work no matter what. And even if you're the person initiating the divorce, you may still have that feeling of, I want to make it work no matter what, but feel that there's just nothing I can do. I've tried everything. And there's a sadness there because it is the loss of what my dream relationship was going to be. It's a lot of mixed emotions about what will people think potentially, how will I feel, what is it going to be like to be single. I know I want to change, and I feel like ending this relationship is the only thing I can do right now to make me happy. If you're the person on the receiving end of the divorce, then the grief is slightly different. You're likely shocked. There's mixed emotions because you may or may not have thought this was going to get to that point. Or you may have discussed with your partner in the beginning that, you guys just don't do divorce. You're going to make it happen no matter what. And then you're given this news and you may feel betrayed, hurt, a lot of mixed emotions. And again, it's still going to be the loss of the relationship. What does your life look like after this point? So, the grief process is normal. In my podcast, I discuss the emotional stages of divorce, and grief and sadness, depression, anxiety, they're all mixed in those stages of how do we cope with this. So I don't want you to feel like the emotions you're feeling, whether either end that you're on of this decision, is not supposed to be there. There's no textbook idea of this is what I'm going to feel, but we generally have a gist that any loss, including the loss of a relationship, produces feelings of grief and sadness in us, even if you're the one that initiated it. So that's normal. That's okay. Adjust to those feelings and determine how you need to cope. And that's where the supports come in of who can you talk to about this? Who is it best not to talk to about this? Because they may continue to, berate you or, say that you should work it out or not understand. So you want to pick how you cope wisely and who you talk to wisely. So there are quite a few support groups. Divorce Care is one that is held locally, and I believe internationally, that can give you a group of people that are just knowing what you're going through. Oftentimes, family members know what you've gone through because the divorce rate is just so high. Chances are everyone you interact with has either gone through a divorce or is in the process of going through divorce or their parents' divorce. Divorce has literally touched every piece of our lives often in our current culture. So it's important to understand what you're feeling, how you're feeling, um, and how to cope with that because it can be a devastating time depending on where you're at in the process. So here's what we should consider with the finances. That generally, if you are in a two-income household and then you go to a one-income household, there's going to be some changes that need to be made. If you have been the stay-at-home parent, there's going to be some changes that need to be made. The biggest thing I would suggest is for you to sit down and take a look at your budget, both before when you are in the relationship and then what your budget may look like once the divorce is final and you're living on your own. So you can get a clear picture of what your finances look like, what amount of income is going to be needed, and you can take an honest look at where you're at financially. Oftentimes, that is the biggest piece of the transition that people do not prepare for is the idea of this is what I need to live the life I want to live, and this is how much I have currently coming in. Some adjustments may be needed. Maybe we need to ask for a raise at our current position. Maybe we need to look at a new job altogether or a different area, depending on the lifestyle that you desire. But the key is that we do want to know where we're starting so that we can best formulate a plan of where we need to go. So take a look within the next couple of days as to what your budget is currently. What are some luxuries that you have in your current life that you want to take with you? Regardless of if you're the one initiating divorce or if you're on the receiving end, this is something that you can take a look at. And I encourage you not to allow the emotions to get into this. These are just numbers. We're just looking at the numbers, and numbers don't have emotions, unfortunately. They're just numbers. Either it adds up or it doesn't, and we have to adjust. So I want you to take an honest look at this so you know where you're starting. And it's okay if we aren't where we thought we'd be. That is generally 90% of the time what it is. It can be a hard pill to swallow for a stay at home parent who has learned that their spouse wants a divorce. Unfortunately, there are a lot of emotions involved with that. But I do want you to do yourself a favor and take a look at what the numbers say so you can factor that into your planning. So as it relates to the finances, um, the legal aspects of the divorce is something to take into consideration. In my home state of North Carolina, the state laws require that you and your spouse be separated for a year and a day before the divorce can be final. And I find that oftentimes when the divorce is something where the couple can collaborate and work on what it looks like, what the breakup and the ending of the relationship looks like, a year and a day is more than enough time to go over the distribution of property, assets, who gets the house, are we selling the house, potentially even to sell the house, as well as alimony, any custody or visitation arrangements, those type of situations. However, of course, that is not 100% of couples. Unfortunately, sometimes we can have very volatile divorces where couples, for whatever reason, do not want to agree on any type of distribution or make it easy at all for either party. So, that, of course, can be a situation where litigation is needed, where a collaborative divorce would not be applicable, where each party has their own attorney and the stress level is a lot higher, simply because hurt people. And if, especially if we do not want the divorce, if there was adultery involved, unfortunately that makes it very difficult for a couple to want to work things out, even for the sake of their children or their family. So it's important to know where you are in that realm. Or is this a mutually agreed upon thing where we just know that relationship isn't working and it's best we go our separate ways? If that's the case, then a litigation option of a collaborative divorce, where you guys come together with a team of people, a lawyer, a financial person, a therapist included, and determine what's best for the whole, would be a good fit for you. It's a lot less stressful. It's something that you all meet together and discuss. Each person doesn't have a lawyer. You're sitting down and working it out together. I found that those situations often prove to be the best, if possible, in the long run, because you're establishing a teamwork relationship. And that's not to say that there's still not things where we're unhappy that the relationship is being dissolved, or we're unhappy with how our partner handled some things or did some things in the relationship. That just means that moving forward, we know for ourselves and our family what we need is to be on the same page. So, a collaborative divorce is a style of divorce that has been helpful when each party is willing to come to the table and negotiate. Of course, if you have your own attorney and your spouse has their own attorney, a collaborative divorce wouldn't be applicable, because at that point we're litigating. So I think it's important to explore what options are available to you, what stage your relationship is in, and the communication aspect to determine what's going to be best for you and your family. But just knowing that there are options out there. Some people don't even utilize lawyers. It just depends on what you have, what you guys have gained in the relationship, and what is needed to be divvied up. And ultimately, in a divorce, you're dismantling both the relationship, but then also the assets, and determining what is needed. So it's important to look at the laws in your state. Some states do not have a year and a day. In some states, you can go right to the courthouse, do the paperwork, and get a divorce that same day. In some states, it only takes 6 months. It really just depends on the state you're in. If you plan to move, you'll want to look at the laws of the state that you're planning to move to determine what that looks like and what you're coming up against. So, the key that you'll get from this is being knowledgeable about your situation and understanding what's going on. I think as much information as you can have, as much realistic assessment of your situation as you can have, is going to put you on a better foot of both coping during the divorce, but then also the transition after the divorce. And that's what we'll talk about next.
The next thing to consider is visitation in custody. So determining, especially those who have children that are younger, teenagers may be able to give you a little bit more information on what they desire. But the younger children, chances are you'll want to determine how often they spend with each parent. Is this something that's split 50-50? Do you have a strong desire to have the children full time? Who is best equipped and in a good position to provide for them or keep a sense of normalcy, that you may want to keep them in the same schools, in the same district, going to the same church? I would encourage you to sit down and determine what you want that to look like. So again, that's where the pen and paper comes in, or potentially a journal, to determine what is it that you most want. If you could have it your way, what would custody and visitation look like? And I encourage you to, again, put those feelings aside, and look at what the children need, which is ultimately if both of you are equipped and able to handle their needs, there's no abuse there, then they need to see both parents. essentially, and the opportunity to develop a relationship with both parents. So, oftentimes, I see that a lot of our emotions can get wrapped in that if there's been infidelity. Sometimes the primary caregiver or stay at home parent feels like they've been pulling the weight all the time, so they don't necessarily feel that the other parent has a right to the children. That can harbor and cause a lot of stress and show that you're harboring a lot of pain. When in actuality, the children need to see both parents absent of what their human parents did, unfortunately, because we're all humans and we all make mistakes. So sit down and determine what is it that you'd like to have happen. And this is going to be important if you do a collaborative divorce, so you know where you're negotiating from. But then also, if it gets to the point where you each have your own lawyers, you can let your lawyer know this is what I'm looking for so they know what to fight for you. It may not be a fight at all. Some states mandate custody training and custody negotiating right there at the courthouse. I know North Carolina and Wayne County is one of those. But other states offer that too, just because they know that custody and visitation can be a very contentious situation. And it can cause a lot of hurt and a lot of pain for people who are already hurt and in pain. So it's important that you determine what you want from this experience. What do we want from custody and visitation? How often do we want to see our children? Do we want breaks where they're with the other parent and we can just kind of have our weekends? Custody and visitation can look like a plethora of options. It doesn't necessarily have to be 50-50. It could be 70-30. It could be, 15-85, depending on what the needs are. If you are a parent that travels a lot, that may look a little different than parents who are, end up staying a mile from each other. It just depends. So you will want to look at your particular situation, but then also consult experts and, potential legal counsel, financial people who can help look at your specific situation and from their expertise give you some options. And you can just decide what you'd like to do.
So, as you see, there's a lot to consider when contemplating divorce. It really is not just as simple as, I want this relationship to end, so I'm just going to end it. Even if there's no children involved, even if there's no property distribution needed, even if it's literally just you and your spouse deciding to part ways, there's a slew of emotions of the ending of the relationship involved. So I always encourage you to seek support from a variety of professionals. Oftentimes, if you're working, your company may provide an employee assistance program that lets you get connected with a variety of professionals at no cost for a consultation. Sometimes that may mean speaking with family and friends and getting some referrals, or of your professionals already in your life, getting some referrals from them as well. So it's important to get the support from the experts and trusted people that you need in order to make the best decision for you and your family. I'm always a support for you, so feel free to reach out to me if need be. If you have any further questions, I'd be more than happy to give you some information, but then also point you in the right direction based on your case. Key supports that you may need are going to be a legal person, a financial person, a mental health counselor to help process all the emotions coming up. I know some people who benefit from having a massage therapist and a personal trainer just as ways of coping, but a variety of supports in your corner to help you through this, as well as your life supports of friends, family, and loved ones. So, again, feel free to reach out. If there's anything that I can help you with, I'll be more than happy to point you in the right direction. And I hope you have an awesome day.